Hi, and welcome to the garden. My name's Brian, and this is Brian's Garden Therapy. This channel is about food, fun, and personal growth. And yes, I'm sitting in the middle of a beautiful garden. We're going to talk about growing things and growing food and have some fun along the way. But it's that last part, the personal growth, that will be the main focus of the channel. Since COVID and over the last few years, there's been a lot of attention brought to the importance of mental health and how, since COVID, we've all been impacted negatively in one way or another with our own journey to mental health. And let's call it mental health fitness. For me, one of the things that have helped me overcome some of the hurdles and events that have occurred in my life is the garden. It started out relatively small and has grown into something a little bit bigger, but also something much more important to me than just a place to get some fresh tomatoes and some zucchini. I've learned a lot of life lessons from the garden, and I'd like to share that here on the channel, wrapped in hopefully some interviews with some people going through similar journeys in their mental health with you, and how they overcome it. We talk about gardening, we'll talk about some of the tips, because again, I've gotten a lot out of that, but also talk about some other things that have helped other people kind of recenter themselves, and when an event happens in their life, how they react to it and how they can help sort of get centered and kind of back on the right path with their mental health. So, today we're just going to start something relatively easy and simple. I'm going to start with a garden tour, but and we'll continue to talk about the garden and some of the key life lessons that I've learned from it. And one of the main ones I've learned, which I think is very important, especially in the springtime, is just being optimistic in the garden. And to be a gardener is to, as some people say, believe in tomorrow. You don't put this type of effort into growing things not thinking that it's not going to grow and it's going to be a total failure. So that optimism is there, and it helps feed that optimism, which is important to move along in life and move along in your day. Now, even with that optimism here in the garden, it doesn't mean you don't hit obstacles, have some failures, and things not go right. But ultimately, what the garden is helping you deal with is overcoming some of those failures, learning from those failures, and having a plan as well when something wrong may happen. So we're going to be talking about all those types of things here and go down the list of some of the life lessons that I've learned here in the garden. So let's take a look at the garden. One of those life lessons that I've learned from the gardening is have a plan. Looking at this garden, you can see things look pretty chaotic, and that's actually by design. I actually wanted to have a garden this year that was sort of controlled chaos, and maybe designed chaos is a better word for it. But let's go through it and show you everything that I did. But one of the main things I wanted to do was create an environment, more of an ecosystem for this garden. So as I walk in here through the garden, you can see a shade cloth. It gets very hot here in Sacramento area, and I do need to put it up when it's over 100 degrees for sure. So walk down here, you can see that I have some cherry tomatoes, sun golds, Terrigina tomatoes, and we go into some pineapple tomatoes that you can see in there that have not ripened yet. And then lemon boy tomatoes, which are a nice, pretty yellow color as well. And I always wanted to come through the garden through an archway. So I do have the arches here that I can walk through into the garden. And on either side of the arches here, I have some center cut squash. If you've never seen what it looks like, this is what it looks like. You want to pick it about this size, and we'll pick this a little bit later today. And it's really delicious. Not very watery. If you don't like zucchini because it's too watery, this is a great substitute for you. It grows very well, very vigorous. Obviously, it crawls up things, and it requires a little bit of space, but that's on this side. It's on this side is a kombucha sweet pumpkin, and that's this right here. So not as prolific as I would like, but it is a very prolific vine and vigorous grower, and it's just nice to kind of walk through there. The bed to the left, outside of the center cut squash growing up the trellis, most of these are just flowers. The heat obviously has done a number on the dill. It is starting to flower. If you've never seen a carrot flower, that's what that looks like there. Pollinators and stuff love it. There's some calendula in there, some sunflowers, and some zinnias as you walk through. So down my first aisle here, again, we have that larger tomatoes and cherry tomato bed. Then again, we have some nice zinnia here, some beautiful yellow marigolds. And then of course we have some borage that the heat has done a number on it, but the bees and pollinators love the borage. I have some eggplant down here. This is called fairy tale, and it does grow in some nice little clusters, as you can see, and that's about ready to pick it at that size. It's one of the best tasting eggplants I've ever had. The only negative is that it is small, but it is delicious. And again, you can see here, and pretty prolific. And then another fairy tale over here. Also, there's some chives intermixed in here. So you can see as a whole, this bed looks kind of crazy and chaotic, but it's exactly what I imagined and wanted. And again, you can see a sunflower that is on its seed making journey. And then as you turn back towards the way we came in, I do have some fabric pots with some basil growing in there. There's Thai basil, there's purple opal basil, and I have some Genovese basil around the other side. And again, these peppers here are two type of bullhorn pepper, one called Carmen, one called Escamillo, so a red and yellow, just like the opera, the Carmen and the Escamillo for her lover. Again, it's a very fun pepper to grow and very good and very tasty. And then this is an Ariba jalapeno, which is a yellow jalapeno. On the other side, again, we have some more borage, again, to bring in those pollinators. And these flowers are actually edible. They taste a little bit like cucumber. On this side of the arch, I have some honey nut squash, or butternut squash, I apologize. And you can see what one looks like there, and another one down there. And then we have some peppers in this area. We have 2 shishito plants, some more Escamillos and Carmen peppers. On the other side, we have lunchbox bell peppers and then some more traditional bell peppers. Over here in this crazy Jurassic Park is zucchini. I have a yellow kind of zucchini called Golden Glory, and then also a striped one called, which is this both of them have variegated leaves, but the striped one called Safari. Great tasting zucchini, tastes great raw, cooked, very low moisture content. It's been great. The reason why I'm growing these leaves back, probably should prune them a little bit, but I want to create some shade, keep this soil a little bit cooler in this hot weather. And the zucchini doesn't seem to mind, and is doing great. So then we go through our second trellis. Have a little old sunflower here with some seeds on it for the birds. They ate most of it. And then again, this is more center cut squash on this side, growing up, and again, it's coming up into contact with the butternut squash on this side. And then one more fabric pot with more Reba yellow jalapeno peppers. And then another small little bed. This is just a 4x1 bed that I built that has a tomato in it, which is a dwarf tomato. I thought it was a determinate one that would only get about 3 to 4 feet high, but it actually is an indeterminate variety of dwarf tomato, and it is going crazy. Here's some cucumbers. Based on some crazy weather we had early in May, I lost my first batch. And then again, that goes back to having a plan. I was ready to go with a second sowing, but not until mid-May. And so it's just starting to take off. You can see hitting the garden therapy sign, and these are called Diva. And hopefully the heat isn't too brutal on them, and I start getting some cucumbers out of those. Again, creating that, intermixing the flowers. This is yarrow. It's a native plant here to California. This is a pastel variety, so you can see the pretty colors. And then again, I have intermixed these alyssums. The flowers have are still coming up, but you can see a lot of it's going to seed. But a lot of the native bees and hoverflies and wasps love alyssum, and it brings them in here to help control some of the pest problems. So I haven't had to spray for aphids or anything this year with all the native bees and hoverflies and ladybugs that have come into the garden and helped out. And then this bed here is my main tomato bed. It's only a 2x6 bed. I do have this structure with the ropes that come down for the lower and lean method. I do prune them to 1 liter most of the time and have them grow up. So I can fit 12 tomato plants in this small space. And again, have marigolds scattered throughout in there as well. Again, on the other side with where the peppers were and the zucchini, on this side, again, we have some more tomatoes and some dwarf tomato varieties that we can talk about in more detail later on in the channel. So then I have a last fabric pot, which is right here, and this is a big 15-gallon pot. And again, I have another dwarf tomato growing out of it with surrounded by basil. This is a really fun basil. It's a lemon basil. Tastes great. Actually, I'm using it in salsa instead of cilantro, and it works out really great. And then I have another Thai basil and some more Genovese basil, which is your classic Italian variety. And then again, we do have the borage, and again, you can see the bees coming in and loving it. This time of year is difficult with the. Here's the other side with the heat. So you can see here, I do have the shade cloth up on this side, which is the eastern part of the garden, and the sun will come across and set over there in the west. And that big shade cloth hanging over the fence, I will bring up and cover the garden a little bit later today before the heat gets too bad. And then what I like to do is I come in here, sit in my chair, and before I do so, let me tell you about the shishito peppers, more shishito peppers over here. Here you have 5 buckets. 3 of the buckets are traditional shishito peppers. 2 of them are called shamai, which are shishito pepper. That's a new variety that's supposed to be spicy. Hasn't been really spicy. I've been mixing them in with the other ones and haven't really noticed the difference. And then I have a sowing of beans there. Again, there was another shishito pepper plant there. It was not looking good. Didn't think I was going to be able to save it. Pulled it, planted some beans there, and hopefully we'll get some dragon tongue beans out of that bucket. So I just come on in here, sit down, I grab my coffee, and sort of recharge here as I look out on the garden and in this little nook and privacy, and sort of start my day with this being one of the first things to help me get some energy and optimism and a good start to my day. So that is the garden tour. Hope you appreciated it. And we'll get into more details. This is the main garden, I call it, off the kitchen. And then I do have 2 other areas where I do grow some additional food. I have a salsa bed area, as well as an overflow area that I continue to use and grow. And we can look at those later on as things progress in the channel. Well, I hope you enjoyed the tour of the main kitchen garden. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to spend with me. I do want to let you know that we will do some other tours of other parts of the garden. For instance, my salsa garden. I'm super happy with that. Making lots of salsa this year with the tomatillos and jalapenos and poblano peppers, and it's been going great. There's also some things here in the garden that are challenging me on a daily basis. Right now, one of the biggest problems I'm dealing with are pests, are stink bugs. They are relatively new here to my area, and they have definitely found my garden, and they are threatening my tomato crop like you wouldn't believe. There are some tomatoes that are actually turning brown before they have a chance to even turn red because of the stink bugs have attacked them, and they come out very early in the morning or at night, and they're all over the place. So that's been difficulty I'm trying to overcome. Again, still trying to stay positive that we're going to be successful with all of this stuff, but it's definitely a challenge. And just like in life, you're going to come up against some things that are challenging and out of your control, and you just have to adapt and try to deal with it in the best way possible. And that's how we're going to move forward with the channel. We'll continue to talk about gardening and some tips and tricks. We'll also have some other people on here and interview some folks that have gone through similar events in their life, and how they have moved forward and taken care of themselves on their mental health journey and emotional wellness. And we'll continue to give you some advice and again the life lessons that I can take from the garden and put out into the world and into my life that hopefully can be helpful to you. So again, thanks a lot for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.